B. Mahtab ji.
Last Friday, the second supplementary demand for grants for 21-22 was presented in this House, which is being discussed today. The budget passed in February this year had estimated an expenditure of 34,83,236 crores for the year. The second supplementary demand for grants propose an incremental cash outgo of rupees 2,99,243 crore, which is an increase of 8.6% in expenditure over the budget estimate. The first SDG presented in July 2021 had proposed an incremental cash outgo of 23,675 crores. Together, these supplementary demands imply an increase of 9.3% in the total expenditure of the union government from the estimates of the union budget. In this supplementary demand for grants, especially 4-5 issues needs to be deliberated, and very rightly so. Number of members have already deliberated on that subject. I would not delve more on those. One is Air India. The government seeks approval of around 62,057 crores. And fertilizer subsidy, the government seeks approval of 58,430 crores. And out of this, 26,603 crore has been sought for indigenous phosphate and potassic subsidy. Rupees 16,827 crore has been sought for imported P&K subsidy, and rupees 15,000 crores has been sought for urea subsidy scheme. But one thing that is to be noted here is the government has increased the subsidy rate for phosphate by 204%. From rupees 14.9 rupees per kg in 2021 to rupees 45 rupees 0.3 per kg in 21-22. This was in response to a sharp increase in international prices of raw materials used in the manufacture of fertilizer. The other aspect is relating to export incentives, which say the government seeks approval of around 53,123 crores for payment of pending export incentives, remissions, etc. Another good thing is the Finance Ministry has also proposed to spend over rupees 49,000 crores towards various schemes of food storage and warehousing. This sector was actually lagging behind, and this investment will definitely help the farmer community or the rural community to a very great extent, and also do away with the wastage of food grains and foodstuff by erecting this. We have been told that by factoring in strong revenue buoyancy in revenue receipt in 7 months, this second supplementary is unlikely to make a significant impact on fiscal deficit arithmetic. I think some of the members also have mentioned about it. Rather, it is the disinvestment receipt which is likely to pose a threat to the fiscal deficit. India Ratings is of the opinion that unless a couple of big-ticket investments, such as LIC, BPCL, are completed in financial year 2022, it will be a challenge to meet the fiscal deficit targets. ICRA has said that at the end of October 2021, 52% of the full year expenditure target had been completed. But I am of the opinion, sir, that there is near certainty that the fiscal deficit will exceed the budgeted 15 lakh crore of rupees, despite the assessment that net tax revenue and RBI surplus transfer will get together surpass the budget estimate by rupees 1.7 lakh crore. I would just like to mention here, relating to the finance situation of the central government. While going through the receipts of 2021-22, between April-October 2021, in comparison to April-October 2019 and April-October 2020, one finds that in GST, there has been a substantial increase of up to 61%. Income tax, there is an increase of 55%. Corporation tax increase of 60%. And union excise duty there is an increase of 61%. So far, so good. But disinvestment also only 5%. But so far, so good. But devolution to the states, there something is lacking. During April-October 2021, the government has collected receipts of 12.8 lakh crores of rupees, which is, I said, 65%, out of the budgeted estimate of 19.8 lakh crores for 2021-22. The collection during April-October 2021 has seen an annual increase of 17% over the receipt collected during April to October 2019. But while gross tax revenue has seen a 14% annual increase, tax devolution to states has seen an 8% annual decrease. I think the minister is aware about it, and respective state governments are also repeatedly asking the central government for more devolution of the funds that is being collected. 3-4 points which I would like to mention, which is of my state's interest. One is delinking of 8 centrally sponsored schemes from central support, abolition of normal central assistance, and a steep increase in state share of centrally sponsored scheme has imposed severe financial burden on the state. For example, Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana, which has now become 60-40. Similarly, sharing pattern of National Health Mission and Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana has been revised, like states like Orissa having to contribute 40% share instead of 25%. Such change in sharing pattern of the centrally sponsored scheme has cast a huge additional financial burden on the states. Article 270 of Constitution of India provides for sharing of the proceeds of all union taxes between the union and the states. However, the cess and surcharge levied by Government of India, as per Article 271 of the Constitution, do not form a part of the divisible pool. The share of cess and surcharge in gross tax revenue of the union government increased from 7.5% in 2000 to 2001 to about 19% in 21-22 in budget estimate. This denies the states their rightful share in the tax devolution. Sir, I will come to the GST part. As it was contemplated, decided in GST Council, when the Act was passed unanimously by the House, by the Parliament, and with that enactment, it was decided, especially relating to after the COVID pandemic and GST compensation issue for the year 2021. Due to COVID-19 pandemic, Government of India had projected shortfall of state GST and IGST share for the states. As per discussion in the GST Council meetings, it was decided that the Ministry of Finance, Government of India, will arrange back-to-back loan to the states in lieu of GST compensation shortfall on account of implementation of GST. The balance compensation due to COVID-19 will be paid from the compensation fund after transition period, that is 30th June 2022. The state governments are not required to pay towards back-to-back loan and interest accrued thereon. The Government of Odisha preferred the above mentioned option 1. Odisha has received an amount of rupees 3,822 crores as back-to-back loan in lieu of GST compensation shortfall for 2021. For 2022, it is decided that 6,430 crore as back-to-back loan is to be paid to Government of Odisha in lieu of GST compensation, and this amount has been paid already. But relating to 2021, another 2,551.23 crore is still pending. I would urge upon the minister that this needs to be looked into, because this is a pending claim of Odisha government. I think that needs to be looked into. The state should have a greater say. This is my suggestion, because we are discussing this in the month of December. And already the next budget is in the making. The problem that Odisha is facing, the problem respective state governments must be facing is this. The state should have a greater say today in planning, designing, and finalizing of criteria for allocation for centrally sponsored schemes. In addition, there should be an advance indication about the annual allocation for each state in the time of budget formulation, so that the states would be able to prepare their budgets on a realistic basis. The release of funds must also match the allocation. The problem today is when the budget is placed in month of February, the state governments start scrambling where to get the funds to match, to avail that grant from the central government. I'm of the opinion, I think it needs to be looked into. I'm of the opinion that a return to a high growth path will not happen on account of market forces alone. Any jubilation over the surge in exports in the first half of the current year is misplaced. Between 2014 and 2019, exports were virtually stagnant. There is a need to make a big push from public investment is required. Central bank funding of a public infrastructure authority may well be the answer. So, for decades, this is very close to my heart and I'm sharing it before this house. Then has been brandishing its credentials as a superpower in making. In the 80s, then Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi had talked about the dawn of the century and India turning a new page. Similar sentiments were relayed by Dr. Manmohan Singh as the finance minister of the government that initiated India's first generation reforms in 1991. And later, during Atal Bihari Vajpayee's tenure, he steered India into a new millennium with second generation reforms. But the Indian economy has remained, as a mother, I can understand, you can understand better, but the Indian economy has remained like a stubborn child, refusing to unshackle itself. The onus lies on you, madam, to unshackle the Indian economy and go past the second generation and to bring in more. Lastly, sir, I would like to draw the attention of the minister towards a very important issue. Long back, Adam Smith had said tax payments should be proportional to income. The pandemic has brought unmitigated hardship. No doubt the income tax rules have over time become less ambiguous and more transparent, and the procedures simpler also. However, as far as taxing interest income is concerned, two ambiguities still remain. First, the interest earned in a financial year, apart from being taxed in that year, is added to the account holder's deposit under compound interest rate regime and becomes again liable for taxation in the subsequent year. This needs to be changed for your consideration. Second, interest earned is taken for taxation on accrual basis, not on realization basis. This needs to be addressed. With inflation surging, real returns are close to nil. This is hitting especially the senior citizens very hard. With these words, I support the supplementary bill.
Srimati Supriya Sule.